Cooking out of a pantry will involve a great many meals of beans and rice. Now, there can be a lot of variety here, but before we start going over all the yummy bean-inclusive meals, we need to learn how to cook the beans properly so that your family's tummies are not grumbly. I learned this technique from an older woman I knew when I was a young mother. Inez was quick-witted, kept a lovely garden, and her beans were the best at every potluck. To start, search down any and all manky beans, shriveled beans, split beans, moldy beans, dirty beans, and the occasional rock or piece of corn or twig. It's always quite a treasure hunt. This step takes about 2 minutes, or less if you have young eyes, and will help your beans to have an even texture and avoid icky bites of moldy beans. Now, to remove the toots, we are going to cover the beans with water and bring them to a boil. We boil for 10 minutes, and then we are going to drain and rinse them. This is the first boil. We will then pour over more cold water and some Lowry seasoning salt, bring them to a boil again, boil them for 10 minutes, and then drain and rinse them again. This is the second boil. You can see here I turn on the cold water before I drain any boiling pot to help the pipes and to flush down any bean gunk. I also make sure to rinse the beans well, as we are seeking to remove as much of the raffinose sugars as possible. We are going to repeat this process again, boiling and rinsing the beans a total of 4 times. I know it seems like a lot of added work, but don't skimp. 3 boils won't do it. There is a notable difference in both digestion and taste if you do a full 4 10-minute boils. Inez had it down, and after decades of following her sage advice, I can attest to the 4-boil rule. Now, you can make a much larger pot of beans than I have here. They freeze beautifully and last for several days in the fridge as well. Then your time involved will be less. Because I've had such success with this process over the years, and my family has digestive issues with canned beans, this is the method I stick to. As a bonus, bulk dried beans store easier. They last longer and are cheaper than other methods. You can also substitute plain salt for the Lowrys to make it more economical. Here you can see that even with the seasoning, the water is clearer. The black tinge is definitely fading. These are pinto beans, and the same method can be used with all other types of beans as well. Black beans are a bit more finicky, and you will want to rinse them very well after each boil, and may need to do a 5th boil if your water stays very dark. Now, after I have detooted my beans, I then start the actual cooking process. So I'm going to cover them with cool water and start adding in the seasonings of my choice. Here I'm going to add in a couple of bay leaves, some onion and garlic powder, oregano, and then a good amount of cumin, some cayenne pepper, and some salt and black pepper as well. I'm going to finish with some smoked paprika. Now, keep a glass or a pitcher of water near the stove to top off the liquid. You always want it to cover the beans by at least ½ an inch. Now, depending on your stove, the beans you're cooking, and the weather, you can count on anywhere between 1 and 3 hours to get the beans nice and soft. You want them fully soft. No al dente beans here. This helps with digestion also. Now, while these are cooking, you have the right amount of time to mix up some rice, make some tortillas, chop up toppings, and get ready for your pantry feast. Today, I'll show you an easy rice dish with parboiled rice. Now, right now, this is the cheapest rice you can get. And after doing a bit of research on it, I found that I could store it just as long as white rice. I also found that it had better nutrition than white rice. So this is our storage rice of choice now. I do keep basmati rice on hand to make with curries. I also keep rose rice to make sushi with, and brown rice for tea. Now, I'll start with chopping an onion. I'll only use about half for this batch and save the other to top tacos or salads with this week. You can save those skins for broth in the freezer or compost them. If you get a hot onion that makes you cry, just cover it with water after you've chopped or sliced it and let it rest for about 5 minutes. Then just pour off the water and rinse. For fresh use, this will cool them right down. If you're cooking with them, the sautéing, low and slow for a bit, will remove that bitter heat. When selecting onions, always choose fatter, flatter onions. They are naturally sweeter. I want these onions to saute for just about 5 minutes. I don't want them to brown. I just want them to get soft and slightly translucent. So I'm going to put some butter and olive oil in the pot. This keeps the butter from burning. Be sure and keep that heat at medium because we don't want to burn the spices that we're going to add right after this. Now, all we have to do is add in some seasoning. Since I'm doing nachos tonight, I want to keep this very simple. I'm going to just add salt, black pepper, a little bit of garlic granules, and I like a good amount of cumin in rice. Then I'm going to add some chili flakes just to make it a bit spicier. I make this exact same recipe to go with my curries, but once I get all of these spices in, I will add in a few tablespoons of curry powder, a dash of sesame oil, and then I'll swap out my tomatoes for broth. So toast those spices for a bit, then add in your rice. You want to get this well coated with the butter and spice mix. Toast it for a good bit. Don't burn it, just toast it. It'll get golden and slightly translucent. It's going to take 3 to 5 minutes, so don't stop mixing and stay right there by the stove. Then add in your tomatoes. Either use a tin like I have here, or frozen and fresh also work well. Now, add in water till you get 1 knuckle above the rice, and check your water for salt. Add more if you need to. Now cover and let simmer for 10 minutes. Then turn it down to very low and leave it for another 10 minutes. Then turn it off until you're ready to serve. When you're ready to serve, just fluff it up. That's all it takes to make amazing, flavorful rice. Now back to our beans. I've drained them and removed the bay leaves. Tonight I want a thicker refried bean for dinner, so I'm going to put them in the blender, leaving out some to make it a little chunkier. You can use a stick blender or a potato masher. They both work great. Change the consistency of your beans with fresh water though, not the bean water if you need them thinner. Usually I leave the beans whole for most dishes, even burritos. When I keep them whole, I save them in a bit of juice to avoid freezer burn and drying out in the fridge. Always check your salt when you're finished and then enjoy. They keep several days in the fridge and freeze really well. Tonight, we are having a treat, nacho platters. Brother Bill and I will share this huge plate. First, I lay down those thick beans. Then I'm going to add some sour cream that I've mixed taco seasonings into. And next, some of that seasoned rice with tomatoes. Bill said this was his favorite part of the meal. Next, I want to put on some shredded cheese and a bit of lettuce. I put on some chopped olives, and I always like to chop mine instead of using the whole ones because occasionally there's a pit, like I found tonight. Then I'll put on some pickled jalapenos, some grilled chicken, and pineapple. Yes, pineapple goes on many things in this house. And then I'm going to top it all with some ranch and some lime slices. You can also add salsa if you like here, or any of your other normal taco toppings. This is a great meal from mostly pantry items. Now I'm just going to grab some chips. We decided to eat out in the garden, and we grabbed our cilantro topping as fresh gets. What a wonderful meal to share. We had such a nice night, just chatting and snacking and playing cards in the garden. I pray you have a peaceful night as well.